Good afternoon, everyone. Todd here with ZD Wines. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Inside ZD Wines. Today broadcasting from the world-famous Rutherford Bench and our beautiful 3-acre estate vineyard planted to 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. The block we're standing in today, planted in 2003, so about 17 years old, all of the vines. So at that point, there's some different virus issues and small disease issues here and there in different pockets that our crew currently is pulling out the old vines, bringing in some new rootstock, getting things ready for the future. So today's installment will be joined with Raphael Yamas Jr., our vineyard associate, to check on the progress of everything here in the vineyard.
Hey guys, yeah, so right now what we're doing is we're actually doing some interplanting. We've rogued some vines that either had disease or failed on us for one reason or another. And so we have in this little bucket what we call rootstock. Here in Rutherford, we actually plant to a rootstock that's known as 10114. It's what was chosen back in 2003. And the reason we plant rootstock is really just kind of depending on the soil type that you have, the varietal that you're planting, the climate that you have. 10114 tends to be phylloxera nematode resistant. Well, it has a high resistance to it, not completely resistant. And it's also pretty good with water. I mean, it's pretty drought tolerant, and it has a nice moderate vigor, and it's a kind of like a medium yielding rootstock as well, which we obviously like. We don't want a Cabernet vineyard that's going to produce too much. So with the rootstock, this rootstock has actually already been cleaned up. We went ahead and cleaned the rootstock up before we stuck it in these buckets to plant. We've actually had it sitting in this water overnight just so that it can absorb some of the water, moisten up the roots. We've cleaned those up. We've cleaned up any roots that have actually grown on the trunk here. And as you see, I've already kind of prepped the hole here. We actually had these dug out last week. And so what we're gonna do now is plant. And so when you're planting rootstock, you wanna make sure that you're getting the height in a good position. You don't want the roots to be too high up because that can cause issues with rooting. You want them to be at a point where you have about a hand's width from the floor to where the grafting union is. So this little piece here, that's the grafting union. So we want to get as close to the stake here as possible. So I'm going to hold that in place while I take a shovel full of dirt. I'm going to scoop that in there. I'm actually going to do one more. I'm going to step on it just a little bit, you know, just to kind of make it a little bit more sturdy. Make sure it's in a nice good position, and make sure that the distance is nice and proper, and then I'm gonna just continue to fill. And so when we fill this hole, we're actually gonna fill it all the way up and continue to mound above the ground to where there's about an inch an inch of dirt above the top of the rootstock there. And let me just do this and I'll explain to you why we actually choose to mound in the first place. You can see we have some of the moisture in the dirt. We actually did irrigate a little bit earlier this morning, make sure that there was enough moisture in the ground, that way the plant stays nice and happy. We also want to remove any big rocks that may have been in that hole. As you can see, in Rutherford we have a soil type that's called Perkins gravelly loam, and it tends to be pretty rocky. All of these rocks actually came right from this area here, and then you see those big guys over there. So now you see we have a mound here. The mound is nice and high, kind of estimated about an inch above that rootstock. And the reason we do this is actually to protect the rootstock. So inside of the mound, the temperature is actually going to be a little bit cooler than it is outside. Ideally you want it to be somewhere in the 60s or so they say. And with this, it's also going to protect it from any extremes. So if it gets really, really hot here in Rutherford and we have new tissue growth, they won't be affected. Same thing with any potential for frost. We are still in that frost season. So if the temperatures decide to tick down a bit, we don't have to worry about it. That's it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this installment of Inside ZD Wines. We look forward to seeing you for the next installment coming very soon. Thank you to Raf here, my friend, for leading us through some of the different steps here in the vineyard. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to burn some rubber. Raf, you know how to start this thing?